Hey all, Baruch Levi B here from the Defiant Spirit. Thanks for tuning in. I want to talk to you today about the Enneagram. Been doing a series on how you know your type very quickly. Enneagram, an ancient typing system. And you don't need to take a test. I do offer a very good one, but you don't need that. I offer a program. You don't need a program. What you need is to just pay attention to how each type, 9 types, react and respond because they all look very different out in the world. So in this one, I want to talk to you about one I know all too well, the Enneagram 8, the Challenger. The Challenger is how I react and how I respond. I'd say it's who I am, but it's not who I am. And you're not a 2 or a 5 or a 7. It's again how we react, how we respond, where we go when we're on autopilot, where we go when we're unconscious, where we go when we're in fear to survive. And when I survive, I look like an 8. So 8 is the challenger, the boss, the maverick, the defender. And this is one of those that sounds kind of cool, but it's not real cool. In fact, it's very damaging. I've done a lot of damage in my life when I am in reaction because 8s have the most access to that intensity, to that energy. You know when you're around an 8, usually. There are subtypes that throw you off a little bit, but by and large, 8s are just intense. We're told that we're yelling when we're not yelling. How many times have I been asked not to yell? I literally wasn't yelling, but I understand it's experienced as others as yelling. We're sort of likened oftentimes to the um, electric outlets in your home. So you have a 110, that's the normal outlet here in America. And you have that big Gazunta one, that huge one behind the washer and dryer, the one that when you plug in, you're like, please God, don't electrocute me. That's a 220, and that's an 8. Everybody else is a 110, 8s or 220s. We just vibrate more intensely. And when we're in fear, instead of sort of shrinking back or flight, we go immediately into fight. We get bigger, even if we're small of stature. When you're with a 9, sorry, an 8, they feel bigger. So, for instance, any of you Game of Thrones fans out there, Arya Stark is one of the smaller cast of characters, but she is an 8. She has a big presence. She's not afraid of the fight. 8s like to fight. Now, it can come from a place of picking a fight. 8s can be bullies. 8s can be dictators. I think disproportionately most dictators have been 8. Think of Fidel Castro. Think of whoever. Don't need to go down this route. Mostly 8s. 8s can also be freedom fighters like Martin Luther King, like Winston Churchill. This was a man who stood up against the Nazis almost single handedly for a period of time. I'm not sure I would be here today if it weren't for Churchill defying the Nazis and ultimately keeping Hitler from coming west, ultimately, potentially to America. That's terrifying for an 8. 8s like to go head to head with the bullies. So they can be the bully, but they also want to fight the bullies. They want to fight injustice. 8s have a longing for justice. Now, every type at some level can want justice, but 8s almost need it. One of the things I couldn't stand growing up is when I'd be fighting with my brother or sister. I was much older, so it didn't happen often. But my parents would say, I don't care who started it, stop it. You don't care who started it. Who started it in life is everything, right? It could be a just stand that I'm making, probably was not when I was burning my sister's Barbies to the ground. However, that really irks an 8. And 8s have a hard time with a lack of truth. Now, it doesn't mean they won't lie. It doesn't mean they don't withhold the truth. We can be the biggest hypocrites of the Enneagram, but we certainly don't like it when it's done to us. It's a sixth sense that we have when somebody's lying to us. Now, it can be lies of commission, saying something that's not true, but it can also be lies of omission. I see this with my kids all the time, leaving something out. So if you're dealing with an 8, you don't want to lie. You don't want to withhold the truth. If you have a difficult issue, you want to get to it with the headline right away because 8s don't like to be manipulated or controlled, even if it's for our own good. We resist it like 2s resist being alone, like 9s resist conflict, 8s resist being controlled. I would say if there's one thing about 8s, and you know when you're with one, They are by far the most controlling type. Enneagram 1s, the reformers, can be controlling. Enneagram 2s, the helper, can be controlling. None of them compare to an 8 in fear, in reaction. We can't breathe when we feel like we're being controlled or when we're out of control. So this is the self-talk of an 8 going forward. I'm in control. I'm strong. I'm invulnerable. And that's the downfall also of an 8. When he or she thinks that vulnerability is weakness. In fact, vulnerability is true courage, right? The word courage comes from the Latin cor, which means heart. The work of an 8 is to stop being so hard, so intense, so rough around the edges. And can we soften? I am told this on a daily basis. Soften. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. You can imagine how challenging it was being a rabbi. It wasn't first nature to be. I was told my job as a rabbi was to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable. And I had a really easy time afflicting the comfortable. I have a harder time comfort the afflicted. Now, ACE can do that when they believe somebody's a true victim. But when somebody's playing the victim card, when somebody's hiding in victimhood, that's a different issue. So ACEs can be incredibly compassionate with somebody who is truly vulnerable or weak or doesn't have power, and ACEs will go to bat for them. However, if we believe that somebody is just being a victim, playing the victim card, there's really no sympathy that you're going to elicit from an 8. The work of the 8s is to not work harder, but work smarter, is probably to not work at all, but to back off, to let things unfold, to have some faith, to get back into your vulnerability, into your softness, and ultimately trust that the world will work without you and that you only really cause havoc when you turn it up. I was told that my half-ass is most people's whole ass. And so normally I have to turn down the volume, turn down the heat, turn down the 8ness, or you end up as an 8-hole. So that's Enneagram 8. You know it when you see it. And oftentimes people are pretty clear about the Enneagram number 8, the challenger. If you want to learn more about the Enneagram or how we might work together in life coaching, executive coaching, Enneagram coaching, jump over to defiantspirit.org. Until the next time, defy your number, live your spirit.